My name is Simone, and I am 32 years old. My family thought it would be a lesson to leave me at a dusty Alabama gas station in the middle of a road trip, laughing as they drove off in a car I paid for. What they didn't know was that while they had the car, I had the credit cards, the hotel reservations, and the deed to the very house they planned to sleep in. Before I tell you how I turned that dusty Chevron into the graveyard of their reputation, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever been underestimated by the people who are supposed to love you most.
Now, y'all look, I need you to picture this. It was 95 degrees in the shade, the kind of thick, humid Alabama heat that makes your clothes stick to your skin the second you step out of the AC. We were at a Chevron just outside of Mobile. The ground was stained with oil spills, and the air smelled like diesel and stale cigarettes.
I was standing there holding a $2.50 bag of salt and vinegar chips and a bottle of water, watching the taillights of a obsidian black Mercedes-Benz Maybach GLS 600 disappear onto the highway. That car costs $200,000. I know because I'm the one who signs the lease checks for it every month. But in that moment, I was just the boring sister who was killing the vibe. Let's back up a second so you understand the family dynamic. My sister, Kiki, is what you'd call a professional influencer. That's code for, I live off my sister's hard work while calling her a hater. She was sitting in the front seat wearing a $2,500 Gucci tracksuit that I bought her for Christmas because she needed to look the part for a meeting she never actually went to. Next to her was Dante. Lord, give me strength when it comes to Dante. He's her fiancé, or as I like to call him, the lead narcissist. Dante is the kind of man who wears a Patek Philippe watch but can't tell you how a savings account works. He's all about leverage and big moves, but the only thing he's ever moved is his luggage into my guest room. And then there's my mother, Brenda. She's the ultimate enabler. She thinks Kiki is the golden child because Kiki is loud, flashy, and went to a big state school, while I just went to an HBCU on a full academic scholarship and became a boring pharmacist. To Brenda, if you aren't wearing a logo, you aren't doing anything with your life. Simone, you are being such a gray rock right now, Kiki had snapped at me inside the station. We're going on a luxury vacation to Destin, and you're standing there checking your work emails. You're depressing us. I didn't argue. I don't argue anymore. I just looked at her over my glasses. I've learned that when you're dealing with people like this, silence is your best weapon. They want a reaction. They want to gaslight you into a screaming match so they can play the victim. I just took my chips to the counter. I'm just making sure the reservations are confirmed, Kiki, I said quietly. Dante hopped out of the driver's seat, adjusting his $500 Balenciaga sneakers. Don't worry about the reservation, sis. We got it from here. Why don't you stay here and cool off? You seem stressed. He laughed. Kiki laughed. Even my mother, sitting in the back seat like she was the Queen of Sheba, let out a little giggle. We'll be back in 10 minutes, Simone, my mother said, not even looking up from her phone. We're just gonna run down to that fruit stand we saw. We need some fresh peaches for the road. I knew there wasn't a fruit stand. I saw the way Kiki and Dante exchanged that look, that watch this look they've been giving each other since they moved in together. I stood on that curb and watched them pull away. I didn't chase the car. I didn't scream. I just checked my watch, a real Patek Philippe, not the knockoff Dante wears. And I waited. 10 minutes turned into 20. 20 turned into 40. I pulled out my phone and saw a text in the family group chat. It was a video. It showed the three of them in the Maybach, music blaring, singing along to some song about living your best life. Kiki turns the camera to herself and yelled, "The vibe is finally right. Sorry, Simone, but you were dragging us down. See you in Destin, maybe." Then I was removed from the group chat. Now, y'all won't believe the level of audacity. They really thought they were doing something. They thought they were leaving the lame sister at a gas station to teach her a lesson about being more fun. They figured I'd have to call an Uber, spend $300 to get to the hotel, and arrive humbled and ready to pay for their dinner. They forgot one very important detail. I leaned against the brick wall of the Chevron and pulled up my banking app. It was time for a little forensic audit of my life. I looked at the primary account, the one that feeds the family black card Kiki has in her Chanel boy bag right now. That bag costs $6,800, by the way. I tapped the screen. Freeze card. Then I went to the hotel app. I saw our reservation for the presidential suite at the Henderson Beach Resort. It's a beautiful room. It costs $3,500 per night. I had booked it for 7 nights. That's $24,500 total. I tapped the screen. Cancel reservation. I felt a slight breeze, but it wasn't the Alabama wind. It was the feeling of boundaries finally being set. I pulled up a private car service app. Not Uber, but the kind of service that sends a professional driver in a suit. I requested a black Cadillac Escalade to take me to the nearest private airfield. The cost was $850.75. I didn't even blink. While I waited, I watched a dusty old Honda pull up to the pump. A woman got out, looking tired, probably coming home from a long shift at the hospital. She looked at me standing there in my plain linen dress and my boring sandals, and she gave me that nod, that universal "I see you, sister" nod. It reminded me of Sunday dinners at Big Mama's house. Big Mama used to say, "Simone, you got a quiet spirit, but don't let people mistake your silence for a lack of a plan. The loudest person in the room is usually the one with the emptiest pockets." Boy, was she right. My Escalade pulled onto the gravel lot 5 minutes later. The driver, a polite man named Marcus, hopped out and opened the door for me. "Heading to the airport, Ms. Reed?" he asked. "Actually, Marcus, let's make a quick stop first," I said, sliding into the cool, leathery interior. The smell of expensive car cleaner and bottled water immediately replaced the scent of gasoline. I need to make a phone call. I dialed the number for the management company that handles my property in Buckhead. You see, the house my mother lives in, the one she thinks she inherited from my father, is actually in my name. I've been paying the property taxes, the $500 weekly landscaping fee, and the $2,000 monthly maintenance for 3 years. "Hello, this is Simone Reed," I said. My voice is calm as a Sunday morning. "I need to start the paperwork for a notice to vacate for the property on Peachtree Road. Yes, the whole house. No, it's not a mistake." As the Escalade sped away from that gas station, I looked out the tinted window. I could see the Maybach about a mile ahead, stuck in a construction bottleneck. They were probably in there laughing, planning which $500 bottle of wine they were going to make me buy at dinner tonight. I pulled out my phone one last time and saw a notification pop up. It was a card declined alert for a $400 charge at a boutique outlet mall 10 miles up the road. Kiki had just tried to buy a pair of sunglasses. I leaned back and took a sip of my chilled Fiji water. They wanted a prank? Fine, but they forgot that I'm the one who writes the checks, and the Bank of Simone was officially closed for business. He thought he'd won because he had the keys to the car, but he forgot one small thing. I still had the keys to his entire life. Now, y'all, I need you to understand the feeling of that Escalade door closing. You know that heavy, expensive thud a luxury car makes? It sounded like a gavel hitting a mahogany desk. It was the sound of the trial ending and the sentencing beginning, while Kiki, Dante, and my mother were probably 5 miles up the road high-fiving each other for their hilarious prank. I was leaning back into seat massagers that cost more than Dante's monthly rent. "Marcus," I said, looking at the driver through the rearview mirror, "how fast can we get to the private terminal?" "We'll be at the FBO in 15 minutes, Miss Reed. I'll make sure the baggage handlers are ready for you," Marcus replied. He was a professional. He didn't ask why I was at a gas station with nothing but a bag of chips and a leather tote. He just drove. I opened my Toomey laptop bag, a gift to myself that cost $595, and pulled out my tablet. My heart wasn't even racing. That's the thing about being a gray rock. People think you're cold, but really, you're just calibrated. I learned that back at Spelman. My professors didn't play about excellence, and my roommates didn't play about dignity. You don't let people pull you out of your character. You just reposition yourself so their nonsense can't reach you. I logged into the charter flight portal. I wasn't about to wait in a 3-hour security line at a public airport just to fly to Florida. I found a Citation CJ3 light jet departing in 45 minutes heading toward Destin. Total cost $6,800.00. I clicked confirm. Now, I know some of you are thinking, "Simone, that's a lot of money for a 40-minute flight." And you're right, but you have to understand the math. For 3 years, I had been the one paying for the family Sunday dinner at the 5-star restaurants in Buckhead, usually dropping $1,200 every single week, just to hear them tell me I was boring. I was just redirecting the disrespect tax back into my own pocket. While Marcus navigated the traffic, my phone started vibrating in my lap. It was Kiki. I didn't answer. I just watched the screen. Then came the text messages. "Oh my God, Simone, we just tried to get lunch at this cute bistro and the card didn't work. The waiter looked at us so weird. Fix it!" Then Dante chimed in.
Yo, Simone, quit playing with the bank account. I'm trying to get gas and some shades. Don't be bitter because we left you. It was a joke, sis. Unfreeze the card. I felt a little smirk tugging at the corner of my mouth. I didn't reply. I just watched the card declined notifications roll in like a ticker tape of their failures.
Declined, $65.42 at Sunny's Bistro. Declined, $120.10 at the Sunglass Hut. Declined, $85 at Shell Oil. They were starting to sweat, and y'all, the sun hadn't even gone down yet. We pulled up to the private terminal, a sleek building with floor-to-ceiling glass and 0 crowds. Marcus hopped out and grabbed my one piece of luggage, my emergency bag I always keep in the car, filled with a few silk dresses and my good jewelry. I tipped Marcus $200. His eyes widened, but he just bowed his head. "Have a safe flight, Miss Reed." I walked into the terminal and was immediately greeted by a concierge holding a silver tray with a glass of sparkling water and a lemon slice. No lines, no screaming kids, no Dante. I sat down in a leather armchair and pulled up the website for the Henderson Beach Resort. Since I had canceled our group reservation, the family suite was gone, but I saw that the presidential suite, the one with the wraparound balcony and the $4,000 soaking tub, had just become available. I booked it for the next 4 nights. Total $14,000.00. By the time I boarded the jet, the pilot, a nice man named Captain Miller, was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. "Welcome aboard, Miss Reed. We'll have you in Destin in no time. There's some chilled Chardonnay and a charcuterie board waiting for you in the cabin." I climbed the stairs, and as the door sealed shut, I felt the last bit of that Alabama humidity leave my skin. I sat in a seat that felt like a cloud and watched through the window as we taxied past the public terminal, where hundreds of people were crammed together.
I thought about my mother. I thought about how she'd sit at the head of the table every Sunday and talk about how Kiki was going places because she had 10,000 followers on an app. She'd look at me, the daughter who spent 8 years in school and 14 hours a day building a business, and tell me I should try wearing more makeup so I could land a man like Dante.
Bless her heart, she really thought the man she was bragging about had something to offer. As the jet engines roared and we lifted off the ground, I felt the clouds, literally and figuratively. From up here, the gas station was just a tiny speck. The Maybach was just a little toy car stuck in traffic. I took a sip of the wine. It was a bottle of Cakebread Cellars that retails for about $85, and opened my laptop again. It was time to look at the family trust, or rather, the trust they thought was for the family. My father had left a very specific clause in his will. He knew Kiki was a spender and Dante was a grifter even back then. He left the bulk of the estate to me, with the instruction that I only distribute funds to them if they showed themselves capable of stewardship. For years, I had been stewarding them, hoping they'd grow up. I'd been the one paying for the HBCU graduations they didn't finish, and the business ideas that never launched. I saw a new notification on my phone. This time, it was a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was high-pitched and frantic. "Simone, pick up this phone. We are stuck at a rest stop and the car is saying service required because Dante tried to put the wrong kind of gas in it. And the cards aren't working. We haven't eaten since breakfast. This isn't funny anymore, Simone. Your sister is crying." I deleted the voicemail. I pulled up the GPS tracker for the Maybach. They were currently sitting at a rest area 30 miles outside of Mobile. They weren't going anywhere. Dante, in his infinite fake baller wisdom, had probably tried to save money by putting regular 87-octane gas into a high-performance engine that requires premium. The repair bill for that mistake alone was going to be at least $3,500. I leaned my head back against the headrest and closed my eyes. The jet leveled off at 30,000 feet. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was expensive. Now, y'all won't believe what I saw when I finally landed in Destin and walked into that 5-star lobby. I was expecting to just check in and go to sleep, but as I walked toward the front desk, I saw a familiar face standing by the concierge, someone who definitely wasn't supposed to be in Florida yet. It was Dante's business partner, a man named Leo, and he was checking in with a woman who definitely wasn't my sister. And the bag he was carrying? It was the exact same $6,000 Chanel bag Kiki had been eyeing for months. He thought he'd won the day by leaving me on the curb, but he forgot one small thing. I'm the one who sees the receipts before the ink even dries. Now, y'all, I need you to stay with me because this is where the mess really starts to ferment. I was standing in the lobby of the Henderson Beach Resort, a place where the air smells like white lilies and $500 candles. I had just stepped off a private jet. My skin was cool and my nerves were steady. But seeing Leo, Dante's supposedly loyal business partner, checking into the same resort with a woman who definitely wasn't my sister, that was the cherry on top of a very expensive sundae. I didn't run up to him. I didn't cause a scene. That's not what a gray rock does. I just pulled my $3,000 Celine sunglasses down a bit further on my nose and watched. Leo was laughing, handing the bellhop a $50 bill like he was some kind of mogul. The woman with him was carrying a $6,800 Chanel Classic flap bag in a limited edition caviar leather. I recognized that bag.
Kiki had been whining about it for months, saying she'd die if she didn't get it for the wedding.
The math was finally starting to math, and the numbers were looking real ugly for my family.
"Ms. Reed, your suite is ready," the concierge said, his voice as smooth as the silk pillowcases waiting for me upstairs. "We've upgraded you to the presidential Gulf front. It features a private wraparound terrace and a dedicated butler service. The total for your stay, including the deposit, comes to $15,600.40.
I handed him my personal card, the one linked to my consulting firm, not the family account. "Thank you. Please ensure a bottle of 2012 Dom Perignon is sent up immediately. I've had a very long day at a gas station."
He didn't even blink. "Of course, Miss Reed."
As I walked toward the gold-leafed elevators, I took one last look at Leo. He was leaning over the counter, probably charging his stay to whatever business account he and Dante had cooked up using my credit profile. I felt a cold, sharp satisfaction in my chest. They thought they were playing a game of checkers, but I had already cleared the board. Now, y'all won't believe the contrast when I tell you what was happening 40 miles back down the road. While I was being escorted into a suite that had a $10,000 hand-carved mahogany bed, my family was experiencing a very different kind of hospitality. I pulled up the family group chat, which I was still technically monitoring through my iPad, and the notifications were screaming. They weren't in Destin. They weren't even in a nice hotel. Because Dante had put the wrong fuel in the Maybach, the car had sputtered out and died right in front of a Motel 6 that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 1980s. The GPS tracker showed them sitting in a parking lot that was probably 50% asphalt and 50% broken dreams. I decided to finally answer the phone when my mother called for the 19th time. "Simone! Simone, thank God!" Brenda screamed into the phone. I could hear the sound of a heavy truck driving by in the background and the unmistakable ding of a low-budget vending machine. "You have to fix this. We are at this place. There are bugs, Simone, real bugs. And the man at the front desk told Dante the room is $99.95, but the card was declined." I sat down on my balcony, looking out at the emerald green waters of the Gulf of Mexico. I took a slow sip of the chilled champagne the butler had just poured. "That's unfortunate, Mother," I said, my voice as flat as a pancake. "But I told you, I'm at a gas station. My phone signal is very spotty. I'm surprised this call even went through." "Stop lying, Simone." This was Kiki, grabbing the phone. I could hear her crying, that high-pitched, fake influencer cry she uses when she doesn't get her way. "We know you aren't at the gas station. Dante went back to look for you and you were gone. You probably hitched a ride with some trucker. Just unfreeze the black card so we can get out of here. Dante is stressed out and my Gucci suit is getting wrinkled." "Kiki, I don't know what to tell you," I replied. "The bank flagged the account for suspicious activity. Probably because someone tried to buy $400 worth of knockoff sunglasses 10 miles away from where they abandoned their sister. The bank thinks the card was stolen by some, what's the word, narcissists?"
"Don't you use that therapy talk on me," Kiki shrieked. "You're just being a scapegoat. No, wait, you're making me the scapegoat. You're jealous because I'm getting married, and you're just a boring pharmacist with no life."
I looked at the $200 fruit platter on my table. If being boring means I have a bed that doesn't require a tetanus shot, then I'll take it. Enjoy the Motel 6, Kiki. I hear the continental breakfast is just lukewarm coffee and regret. I hung up.
Now, y'all, this is where the kitchen table gossip gets real juicy. I didn't just hang up to be petty. I hung up because I needed to call Marcus, my forensic accountant.
Marcus, I said when he picked up. I'm in Destin. I just saw Leo checking in. He's with a woman and she's carrying a bag that costs more than his car. I need you to look into the Dante and Leo Consulting LLC. Check the filings for the last 48 hours.
Already on it, Simone, Marcus said. I could hear him typing. And you were right to be suspicious. Dante didn't just leave you as a prank. He filed a power of attorney document this morning at the county clerk's office in Atlanta. He used a forged signature. Your signature. My blood turned to ice, but I didn't let my hand shake. He tried to take over the trust?
He didn't just try, Simone. He thinks he succeeded. He filed it as an emergency measure, claiming you were mentally incapacitated and unable to manage your affairs. That's why he left you at the gas station. He needed you to be missing or unreachable for at least 24 hours so he could finalize the transfer of the $500,000 business loan into his personal account.
I leaned back in my chair, watching a seagull fly past my terrace. The audacity was breathtaking. They didn't just want to humble me, they wanted to erase me. They thought they could leave me in the dust of a chevron, call me crazy to the courts, and walk away with the money I spent a decade earning. They thought they had secured the bag. They thought the boring sister was too stupid to check the filings while she was on vacation.
Marcus, I said, my voice dropping an octave. Does he know the loan requires a secondary digital verification from my encrypted device?
No, Marcus chuckled. He thinks the paper filing is enough. He's waiting for the funds to hit his account by Monday morning. Good, I said. Let him wait. Let him sit in that Motel 6 and dream about his $500,000. Let him think he's the smartest man in Atlanta.
I ended the call and looked at my phone. A new text had come in from Dante. It was different from the others. It wasn't angry. It was almost sweet. Hey sis, sorry about earlier. We really did mean it as a joke. We're coming back to get you now. Just stay put. We love you, Simone. Everything is going to be fine on Monday. He was gaslighting me while planning to rob me blind. He was the fake baller playing the part of the concerned brother-in-law, all while his partner was upstairs in my hotel with another woman and a stolen Chanel bag. I didn't reply. I just went to the bathroom and started a bath with $700 worth of imported sea salts. As I stepped into the water, I realized something. They weren't just my family anymore. They were targets. And Sunday dinner was about to get very, very expensive for them. They thought they'd won because they had the car and the forged papers, but they forgot one small thing. I still had the keys to the safe, and I was about to change the locks. Now, y'all, I need you to lean in close for this one, because the mask is finally coming off. After I stepped out of that $700 salt bath and wrapped myself in a fret robe that felt like being hugged by a cloud, I sat down at the mahogany desk in my suite. My family spent the last decade calling me the boring one and the family pharmacist, like I was just some girl in a white coat counting out pills at a grocery store for $22 an hour. They really thought that was it. Now, y'all won't believe the level of delusion people can have when they refuse to see you. Because I stayed quiet at Sunday dinners and didn't post my bank statements on Instagram like Kiki, they assumed I didn't have anything worth showing. But here's the secret they were too arrogant to ever find out. I don't just work at a pharmacy. I own a boutique pharmaceutical consulting firm that specializes in high-stakes patent acquisitions and supply chain logistics for 3 different hospital systems in the Southeast. While they were out here faking it to make it, I was out here making it and keeping my mouth shut. I opened my encrypted laptop, a custom-built machine that cost me $5,400, and looked at my personal balance sheet. My net worth sat at $4,500,000 and 0 cents. Most of that is tied up in diversified trusts and real estate that Dante doesn't even know exists. To him, I'm just the gray rock sister he can borrow $50 from when his investments don't pan out. I scrolled through the forensic report Marcus had sent over. It turned out that Dante hadn't just forged my name on a whim. He'd been planning this for months. He'd created a shell company called D&K Elite Ventures, which is just narcissist speak for I have no real business plan, and used my social security number to apply for a $500,000 business expansion loan. The audacity of a man who can't even pay for a tank of gas without my permission, trying to steal $500,000 from my credit profile. It made my blood boil, but I didn't let my face change. I just kept my breathing steady. I picked up the phone and called my office manager, Alina. "Alina, it's Simone," I said. "I need you to pull the digital logs for my secondary verification key. Did we get a ping from a non-authorized IP address in the last 4 hours?"
Yes, Simone, Elena said, her voice sharp and professional. Someone tried to bypass the two-factor authentication 3 times from a mobile device located near Mobile, Alabama. They tried to use a recovery code, but since you changed the backup email to the encrypted server last month, they got locked out.
Did they try the power of attorney bypass?
They did. An upload was attempted of a scanned document, but the system flagged the signature immediately. The AI noted the stroke pressure didn't match your digital profile. The loan is currently in fraud review status. The bank is just waiting for your signal to involve the authorities.
"Tell them to hold," I said, looking out at the dark ocean. "I want to see how far he's willing to go. I want him to think he's 1 click away from the money."
Y'all, I had to laugh. Dante was probably sitting in that Motel 6 right now, staring at a spinning wheel on his cracked iPhone screen, thinking he was about to become a millionaire. He probably told Kiki they were going to buy a house in Tuxedo Park and a $10,000 engagement ring to replace the glass one he bought her. Now, y'all won't believe what happened when I checked the GPS tracker on the Maybach again. The car was finally moving, but it wasn't coming toward Destin. It was headed back toward Atlanta. It seemed Dante realized that without my boring presence to pay for the gas in the hotel, their little luxury road trip was a total bust. They were retreating like dogs with their tails between their legs, probably planning how they were going to gaslight me the second I walked back through the front door. I clicked over to my home security system. I have a high-definition 16-camera setup at my house, the one Brenda and Kiki live in, that cost me $12,800 to install. I watched the live feed as the Maybach pulled into the driveway. Dante got out first, looking absolutely disheveled. His $2,000 suit was wrinkled, and he looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. Kiki followed him, crying and dragging her Chanel bag across the pavement like it was a sack of potatoes. Then came Brenda. She walked into the house, and I saw her immediately go to the liquor cabinet and pull out a bottle of my $250 scotch. I turned on the interior audio. "I'm telling you, Dante, she did this on purpose," Kiki was screaming. "She knew we were going to leave her. She's trying to ruin my wedding. How am I supposed to pay the florist on Monday? The deposit is $15,000, and they don't take 'I'll pay you later' for an answer." "Shut up, Kiki," Dante snapped. He was pacing the floor of my living room, kicking my $4,000 silk rug with those fake luxury sneakers. "The loan is going through. I'm telling you, the paperwork is filed. By Monday morning, that $500,000 will be in the D&K account. We won't even need Simone's crusty little pharmacist money anymore. We'll buy this house from her and kick her out." I sat there in my silent 5-star suite, listening to them plot to steal my home and my future. It was like watching a group of toddlers try to plan a bank heist. They had no idea that I was the one who owned the bank, the building, and the very air they were breathing. I thought back to my graduation day at my HBCU. My father had pulled me aside, away from the loud celebrations and Kiki's constant need for attention. He had looked me in the eye and said, "Simone, the world is going to try to make you small because you're quiet. They're going to think you're a servant because you're willing to help. But remember, the person who holds the ledger holds the power." He was right, and right now, my ledger was looking real heavy.
I opened a new tab on my laptop and started looking at the wedding venue Kiki had booked. It was a historic mansion in Buckhead. The rental fee alone was $30,000. I saw that the final payment was due in 48 hours.
I also saw that the contract was signed by Kiki, but the guarantor listed was my name.
They didn't just want my money. They wanted my reputation to cover their bills when they inevitably failed. They thought they could use my boring professional status as a shield while they lived like royalty on my dime.
"Elena," I said, calling my manager back, "I want you to send a formal inquiry to the Buckhead Manor. Ask for a copy of the final invoice for the Reed-Williams wedding, and tell them that as the guarantor, I am requesting an immediate audit of all charges." "You want to cancel it?" Elena asked.
No, I smiled, and for the first time that day, it wasn't a nice smile. I want to see exactly how much they've been stealing. I want the receipts. Because on Monday, when Dante thinks that loan is hitting his account, he's going to get a very different kind of notification. I leaned back and watched the screen as Dante walked into my home office, the room he's strictly forbidden from entering, and started trying to force open my desk drawer with a letter opener. He thought he was looking for a checkbook. He thought he was looking for a way out. But he forgot one small thing. I'd already moved everything that mattered to a place he could never reach, and the only thing he was going to find in that drawer was a one-way ticket to his own destruction. Now, y'all, the sun was barely up over the Gulf of Mexico when my phone started singing a song I didn't want to hear. I was sitting on my private terrace, draped in a silk robe that cost $950, watching the waves roll in while I nibbled on a $350 breakfast spread that featured fresh honeycomb and gold leaf berries. It was peaceful. It was quiet. It was everything my life in Atlanta wasn't.
But then, the flying monkeys started their formation.
Now, if you haven't been in therapy or dealt with a narcissist, let me tell you what a flying monkey is. It's the person the narcissist recruits to do their dirty work. They don't send the villain, they send the person you're supposed to trust. They send the person who's going to use your heart as a doormat. The first call came from Aunt Linda. Now, Aunt Linda is the first lady of her church back home. She's the kind of woman who wears hats so big they need their own zip code and uses "bless your heart" as a weapon of mass destruction.
I took a slow sip of my $45 pot of Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee and let the phone ring 4 times before I ticked up. "Hello, Aunt Linda," I said, my voice as smooth as the $500 La Mer cream on my face. "Simone? Simone, baby, is that you?" Her voice was thick with that fake concern that usually precedes a request for money. "We've been worried sick. I just got off the phone with your mother. She was in tears, Simone, absolute tears. She said you abandoned them in the middle of Alabama and left them with no way to get home. She said you're having some kind of breakdown." I leaned back in my chair, looking out at a yacht that probably cost $12 million floating on the horizon. "Aunt Linda, I'm not having a breakdown. I'm having a vacation. There's a difference." "Don't you be smart with me, girl," she snapped, the church mother mask slipping for just a second. Your sister is supposed to be planning the wedding of the century. She's the pride of this family. And here you are, acting out because you want attention. It's unchristian, Simone. It's downright selfish. Your mother said the cards are frozen. Do you know they had to stay in a Motel 6 with common people? I almost choked on a blackberry. A Motel 6? My goodness. I hope they checked for bedbugs. Simone, this isn't a joke. Dante is a good man, and he's trying to build a future for your sister. He told me you're trying to block a business loan that's supposed to take care of your mother in her old age. Is that true? Are you really that bitter? This was the play. Dante had already gone to the elders. He was painting me as the unstable, bitter sister who was standing in the way of the family's prosperity. It showed everyone he wasn't playing around. He was trying to isolate me so I'd feel pressured to give in. Auntie, let me tell you what's true, I said, dropping my gray rock voice down an octave. The math isn't mathing. I lost my job 3 days ago. The pharmacy is under a federal audit because of some irregularities found in the accounts I didn't even know about. The bank froze everything because they think someone was using my identity to pull out $500,000 loans. I'm down here trying to talk to lawyers before the FBI comes knocking on my door. The silence on the other end of the line was so heavy you could have anchored a ship with it. You lost your job? Aunt Linda whispered. I'm broke, Auntie, I lied. And y'all, I've never felt so rich saying a word. I had to use my last few dollars to hitch a ride to a friend's house just so I wouldn't be stranded. If Mom and Kiki need money, they're going to have to ask Dante. After all, he's the big investor, right? Now, y'all won't believe how fast a flying monkey retreats when they think the person they're attacking doesn't have any juice left to squeeze. Oh, well, I didn't know all that, Aunt Linda stammered. I have to go, Simone. I have a deacon's meeting. I'll pray for your soul, baby. Click. She didn't offer to help. She didn't ask if I had food. She didn't even ask where I was staying. The second I wasn't the family ATM, I was invisible. I set the phone down and picked up my tablet. It was time to check the GPS tracker on the Maybach. My family had been back in Atlanta for 6 hours, and they were already moving. I watched the little blue dot move through the streets of Buckhead. It didn't go to the bridal shop. It didn't go to the grocery store. It pulled into a very specific, very suspicious location on the outskirts of the city. The Diamond and Gold Exchange. It was a high-end pawn shop, the kind where people who are fake rich go to get quick cash when their lifestyle exceeds their credit limit. I opened the live feed for the Maybach's internal dash cam, another $2,000 feature I had installed for safety. I saw Dante and Kiki sitting in the front seat. Dante was wearing a $700 Versace shirt that looked like it had been slept in, and he was sweating through the silk. I'm telling you, Kiki, just give me the bag, Dante was saying. His voice was shaky, desperate. If I pawn your Chanel bag and that Patek Philippe watch Simone bought me for my birthday, I can get at least $15,000. That'll cover the florist and the venue deposit until the loan clears on Monday. No! Kiki screamed. She was clutching her $6,800 bag like it was a newborn baby. This is my bag. Simone bought this for me. Why don't you pawn your investments? Because those investments take time, you idiot, Dante yelled back. The loan is stuck in review because Simone's boring little bank flagged it. If we don't pay the Buckhead Manor by 5 o'clock today, they're going to give our date to that influencer you hate. Do you want that? Kiki sobbed. I hate her. I hate Simone so much. Why couldn't she just stay at that gas station and keep the cards working? I watched as Kiki finally handed over the bag and the watch. Dante grabbed them with a look of pure greed. He didn't even say thank you. He just hopped out of the car and ran toward the pawn shop door. What they didn't know was that I had already called the owner of that shop. His name is Mr. Henderson, and he's been a patient at my pharmacy for years. I had sent him a very specific email an hour ago with the serial numbers for every piece of luxury jewelry and every designer bag I had ever gifted to my family. I sat there on my balcony watching the little blue dot on the screen, and I felt a sense of peace that $2 million couldn't buy. They thought they were being clever. They thought they were the ones playing the game. But they forgot one small thing. I'm the one who kept the receipts, and I'm the one who knows the difference between a real diamond and a piece of glass. I looked at the clock. It was almost noon. Time for one last call. "Marcus," I said when my accountant picked up, "the Maybach is at the pawn shop. Dante is trying to sell items that are technically owned by the Simone Reed Trust for business expenses. I want you to call the police. Don't report a theft yet, just report a suspicious transaction involving assets under a federal fraud review." "On it, Simone," Marcus said. "And by the way, the Buckhead Manor just sent over that audit you asked for. You aren't going to believe what Dante tried to add to the bill this morning." "Try me," I said, watching Dante walk back out of the pawn shop with a yellow envelope in his hand. He tried to book a $2,000 groom's suite with a private humidor and a $5,000 VIP transportation package for his business associates from out of town. Now, y'all won't believe the grin that spread across my face. He was still spending money he didn't have, planning a party for a life he was about to lose. He thought he'd secured the funds. He thought he'd outsmarted the boring sister. But as I watched the GPS, I saw a familiar set of lights pulling into the pawn shop parking lot right behind him. Blue and red. He thought he had the cash in his hand, but he forgot that when you play with stolen property, the only thing you're really holding is a one-way ticket to a cold cell. Now, y'all, I need you to understand something about people like Dante. They don't just want your money. They want to eat your soul and tell you it tastes like chicken. After I watched those blue and red lights flash across the dash cam of the Maybach, I didn't cheer. I didn't even smile. I just leaned back against the 500 thread-count Egyptian cotton pillows in my suite and waited. Dante didn't get arrested. Not yet. Marcus told me the police just detained him for questioning because the serial numbers on that Patek Philippe watch popped up as part of a civil dispute in the system. They confiscated the watch and the bag, gave him a receipt that wasn't worth the yellow paper it was printed on, and told him to have a nice day. I watched through the camera as he walked back to the car. His face was the color of a spoiled plum. He looked like he wanted to punch the dashboard, but he knew I was probably watching. "Now, y'all won't believe the audacity of what he said next," I muttered to myself, turning up the audio. "It's her," Dante hissed at Kiki as he slammed the door. "That boring little pharmacist is tracking us. She put some kind of flag on the jewelry. She's trying to trap me, Kiki. She's gaslighting the police into thinking I'm a thief." Kiki was sobbing, her makeup running down her face in streaks that looked like $500 charcoal drawings. "My bag, Dante! They took my bag! How am I supposed to go to the tasting tomorrow without my bag? Everyone will think we're broke." "We aren't broke!" Dante screamed, hitting the steering wheel. "The loan clears on Monday. $500,000, Kiki. I just need to get through the weekend. I'll just use the emergency backup signature." I turned off the feed. I had heard enough. It was time to look at the paper trail that was going to bury him. The anatomy of a betrayal. Marcus had sent over a compressed file titled Project Peach Revenge. I opened it on my $5,400 laptop and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning.
Dante hadn't just been sloppy, he'd been busy. He'd spent the last 6 months building a digital house of cards, and he'd used my name as the foundation. The shell company. He'd registered D&K Elite Ventures using my home address and my professional license number. The forged loan, a $500,000 small business expansion loan from a private equity firm in Buckhead. The collateral. This was the part that made my stomach drop. He hadn't just used my credit. He had submitted a forged quitclaim deed for my house, the house Big Mama always said was my fortress. He was trying to steal my home to pay for a wedding I wasn't even invited to. I looked at the signature on the deed. It was a masterpiece of forgery. He'd clearly spent hours practicing the way I loop my S and the way I don't quite cross my T until the end of the word. It was a testament. No, wait, I'm not using that word. It showed everyone he wasn't playing around. He was a professional narcissist. I pulled up the itemized budget for the royal wedding they were planning. It was the ultimate financial porn for a grifter. The Reed Williams wedding budget, estimated. Category: vendor. Amount: venue rental. Buckhead Manor, $30,000. Catering: Le Panier Gold, $25,000. Floral design: orchid and ivy, $40,000. Custom gown: Vera Wang Boutique, $20,000. Groom's suit: Tom Ford Custom, $85,000. Total deposit due: Monday morning, $123,000. They didn't have a dime of it. They were banking everything on that $500,000 loan hitting the account. They were planning to live like royalty for 24 hours, while I ended up homeless and in debt for the next 30 years. The fool plays her part. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. I knew what this was. This was the enabler call. Simone? Brenda's voice was shaky. Dante just called me. He's in a state, baby. He said you're calling the police on him. He said you're trying to ruin your sister's life over a little joke. Simone, we're family. We don't do this. Sunday dinner is supposed to be about love, not lawsuits. I took a slow breath, channeling every bit of that gray rock energy. I made my voice sound small, confused, and a little bit broken. Mom, I don't know what's happening, I whispered. The bank called me. They said there's a fraud investigation. They said someone tried to take out a loan for $500,000 and used the house as collateral. I'm scared, Mom. They said if I don't figure out who did it, I might lose everything. Oh, well, it's probably just a mistake, Brenda said, her voice rising in pitch. She was a terrible liar. You know how these big banks are. They're always messing stuff up. Why don't you just call the bank and tell them to drop it? Tell them you're sure it's just a family matter. I can't, Mom, I said, letting a fake sob escape. The investigators said they have a copy of my signature. They said it looks just like mine. I told them I didn't sign anything, but they don't believe me. They said they're going to run a forensic audit on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. I heard a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Dante was clearly standing right next to her, feeding her lines.
Monday morning? Brenda asked.
Yes, 9 o'clock. Unless I can prove someone else did it, they're going to freeze every account I have for the next 2 years. Well, let me talk to Dante, Brenda said quickly. Maybe he knows a lawyer who can help. Just stay where you are, Simone. Don't talk to anyone else. We'll handle this. We're family. I hung up and checked the dash cam again. Dante was grinning. He actually had a smug, arrogant smirk on his face. He thought I was falling for it. He thought I was scared and confused. He turned to Kiki and said, "She's clueless. She thinks it's the bank. We have until Monday morning at 9 to get the funds out and move them to the offshore account. Once the money is moved, she can audit all she wants. We'll be long gone." Now, y'all, I need you to realize the level of narcissism required to think you can rob a woman blind, leave her at a gas station, and then expect her to stay put while you finalize the theft. But that's the beauty of being a gray rock. They only see what they want to see. They see the boring sister who follows the rules. They don't see the woman who has already spent $2,000 on a private forensic team to verify every single stroke of that forged signature. I opened a new window on my laptop. It was time to meet my expert ally. I had a Zoom call scheduled with a man named Detective Vance. He wasn't with the local police. He was with the Financial Crimes Division of the State Bureau of Investigation. And unlike the officers at the pawn shop, Detective Vance didn't care about civil disputes. He cared about wire fraud. "Miss Reed," Vance said as his face appeared on the screen, "we've reviewed the documents you uploaded. The quitclaim deed is a clear forgery. But more importantly, we've tracked the IP address of the loan application. It was submitted from a router registered to a Dante Williams at an address on Peachtree Road." "That's my house," I said firmly. "We know. We also found something else you might find interesting. Mr. Williams didn't just apply for one loan. He applied for 3, totaling $1,200,000. And he used your professional pharmacist credentials to justify the medical supply nature of the business." I felt a cold rage settle in my bones. He wasn't just trying to steal my house, he was trying to ruin my license. He was trying to ensure I could never work as a pharmacist again. "What's the next step, Detective?" "We wait for Monday morning," Vance said. "The moment he attempts to transfer those funds out of the review status, he's committing a federal felony in real time. We'll have the warrants ready." I thanked him and closed my laptop. I walked out onto my balcony. The moon was reflecting off the Gulf, and for a second I felt like I was back at Big Mama's house, sitting on the porch after Sunday dinner. I could almost hear her voice. "Simone, when you set a trap for a rat, you don't use cheese. You use the thing that rat wants the most, and a greedy man will always choke on his own appetite." I looked at my watch. It was Saturday night. I had 36 hours of peace left before the red wedding started to crumble. I picked up my phone and sent one last text to the family group chat. I hadn't been added back in, so I sent it to my mother directly. "Mom, tell Kiki I'm so sorry I've been difficult. I want to make it up to her. Tell her I'm coming home tomorrow and I'm bringing a surprise for the wedding casting on Monday morning. It's something she's been wanting for a long time." I saw the red receipt almost instantly. Dante thought the surprise was the $500,000. He thought I was finally surrendering. But y'all won't believe the look on his face when he finds out what I'm actually bringing back from Florida. He thought he'd won, but he forgot one small thing. I still had the original deed to the house, and I'd already signed it over to someone he'd never expect. Now, y'all, I need you to understand that when a gray rock finally decides to move, it's not a pebble rolling down a hill, it's an avalanche. I checked out of the Henderson Beach Resort on Sunday morning. My bill, including the $15,000 suite and the $2,100 I spent on vintage champagne and room service lobster, was settled with a single tap of my metal card. I didn't even look at the receipt. When you've spent a decade building a $4,500,000 net worth, you don't sweat the small stuff. I didn't take a private jet back. I wanted to be on the ground. I wanted to feel the humidity of Georgia as I drove back into the lion's den.
I hired a private chauffeur to drive me the 5 hours from Destin to Atlanta in a customized Mercedes-Benz Maybach S-Class, the kind with the champagne flutes in the back and the seats that massage your lower back while you plot a corporate execution. Total cost for the one-way trip, $2,250.00. As we crossed the Georgia state line, I called the man I call the fixer. His name is Marcus, and we went to the same HBCU back in the day. While I was in the lab learning how to compound medications, Marcus was in the law library learning how to dismantle lives. He's a forensic accountant and a private investigator who charges $1,000 an hour, and he's worth every single penny. Marcus, I'm 45 minutes out from Buckhead, I said, watching the pine trees blur past the tinted windows. I need to meet at Chop's Lobster Bar. Book the private room in the back. I don't want to be seen until I'm ready. It's done, Simone, Marcus replied. His voice was like smooth bourbon, calm and expansive. I've got the toxicology report on those supposed supplements Dante was trying to sell through your pharmacy license. And I've got the original digital footprint from the quitclaim deed forgery. It's worse than we thought. He didn't just forge your name. He used a notary who's already under investigation for 5 different mortgage fraud cases in DeKalb County. The math is finally starting to math, I muttered.
Now, y'all won't believe the scene at Chops. If you've never been, it's the place in Atlanta where the real money eats. We're talking about men in $10,000 suits and women dripping in Van Cleef & Arpels. I walked in wearing a simple black silk slip dress from the Row. It cost $2,400 and a pair of sunglasses that hid the fact that I hadn't slept more than 4 hours.
I was led to the private room where Marcus was waiting. He had a $3,000 MacBook Pro open and a folder thick enough to be a dictionary. Simone, Marcus said, standing up to give me a quick hug. You look too calm for a woman whose family is trying to steal her house. I'm not calm, Marcus. I'm focused. Let's see the damage. We sat down, and a waiter brought over a bottle of Silver Oak Cabernet, a $250 bottle, and some oysters Rockefeller. We didn't even touch the food for 20 minutes.
Here's the technical trap, Marcus said, sliding a tablet toward me. I've installed a mirrored server on your pharmacy's back end. The moment Dante tries to finalize that $1,200,000 loan cluster on Monday morning, the funds won't go to his D&K Elite Ventures account. They'll be redirected into a locked escrow account held by the State Bureau of Investigation.
So he'll think he's getting the money, but he's actually just triggering a wire fraud alert? Exactly. It's a honeypot trap. He'll see a pending status on his screen that'll make him think he's rich, but the second he hits transfer, the handcuffs are essentially already on his wrists. Marcus then pulled out the piece of paper that made my heart stop. It was a toxicology report. Dante wasn't just trying to buy a wedding, Simone. He was using your license to order high-grade, restricted chemicals under the guise of pharmacy supplies. He was planning to manufacture those weight loss injections that are all over social media right now, but he was cutting them with industrial-grade fillers. If he had shipped those out under your name, you wouldn't just be broke, you'd be in a federal prison for the next 25 years. I leaned back, the gray rock in me finally feeling a crack. This man, the man my sister wanted to marry, the man my mother called a good provider, was willing to let me rot in a cell just so he could be a fake baller in Buckhead. It showed everyone he wasn't playing around, I whispered. He really wanted me gone. So what's the move? Marcus asked. We have enough to call the feds right now. No, I said, standing up. I smoothed out my dress. I'm going home. I'm going to give them one last chance to tell the truth. Big Mama always said you give a dog enough rope so he can either tie a knot or hang himself. I want to see which one Dante chooses.
Now, y'all, I walked into my house on Peachtree Road at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. The lights were all on, and I could hear Kiki's loud, screeching laughter coming from the kitchen. The house smelled like my $200 Joe Malone candles and fried chicken.
I walked into the kitchen, and there they were, Sunday dinner. My mother, Brenda, was at the stove. Kiki was sitting at the island, scrolling through a $500 iPad I'd bought her for her birthday, and Dante was sitting in my father's old leather chair, sipping a glass of my $150 Hennessy, looking like he owned the place. "Simone," my mother gasped, nearly dropping a plate. "You're home! We were so worried." "Were you, Mom?" I asked, setting my Celine bag on the counter, because it looked like you were having a celebration. Kiki jumped up, her face twisted in that flying monkey snarl. "You have a lot of nerve showing up here after what you did, leaving us at that gas station. Do you know Dante had to pawn his investments just to keep the wedding venue? You're so selfish, Simone." Dante stood up, putting on that slick, oily smile that used to fool me. "Now, Kiki, let's not be harsh. Simone was just stressed. Right, Simone? Look, I know we had that misunderstanding with the bank, but I've got it all sorted. I spoke to a consultant, and the funds for the business are clearing tomorrow. I'm even going to pay you back for the hotel you canceled." I looked at him. I looked him dead in his fake baller eyes. "Dante," I said, my voice calm and steady, "I'm going to ask you one question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Is there anything you want to tell me about a loan application or a deed? Anything you want to confess before tomorrow morning?" The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop on my $3,000 hardwood floors. Dante's smile didn't even flicker. "I don't know what you're talking about, sis. I told you, I'm building a future for this family. You should be thanking me instead of acting like a narc." "Confess?" Kiki screamed. "You should be confessing to being a hater. You're just mad because Dante is a man of action and you're just a girl who counts pills. Leave him alone." My mother sighed. "Simone, baby, just eat some chicken and stop making trouble. Dante is taking care of us now." I looked at the three of them, the people who were supposed to love me, sitting in a house I paid for, eating food I bought, planning to steal the very ground I was standing on. "Okay," I said quietly. "I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. I'll see you all at the wedding tasting tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. "You're coming?" Kiki asked, her eyes lighting up with greed. "You're gonna bring the surprise you texted Mom about?" "Oh, I'm bringing it," I said, picking up my bag. "It's going to be a morning none of you will ever forget." I walked upstairs to my room and locked the door. I didn't cry. I just pulled out my phone and sent a one-word text to Marcus. "Execute." He thought he'd won because he hadn't blinked. He thought I was still the boring pharmacist who could be bullied into silence, but he forgot one small thing. The surprise I was bringing to the tasting wasn't a check. It was a warrant. Now, y'all, I need you to feel the air in that dining room. It was thick, and it wasn't just because of the steam rising off the $300 catering spread my mother had ordered on my emergency credit card. It was the silence. It was the kind of silence that happens right before a thunderstorm breaks over the Georgia pines. I had just asked Dante if there was anything at all he wanted to tell me before Monday morning. I sat there, perfectly still, my hands resting on the edge of my $2,500 reclaimed oak dining table. I didn't fidget. I didn't look away. I just watched him. Dante didn't even have the decency to look nervous. He just leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of my $150 Hennessy like he'd actually worked a day in his life to earn it. He let out a little chuckle, the kind of arrogant sound a man makes when he thinks he's playing a game with a child.
Confess, Simone, you really are something else, Dante said, showing those 2 white veneers that probably cost him $8,000 on a high-interest credit card. I'm trying to bring this family into the big leagues. I'm out here making power moves, talking to private equity firms, and securing the bag for your sister. And you're sitting here acting like a detective in a bad movie. It's actually kind of sad. Kiki rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd see her own brain. She was wearing a new silk head wrap that probably cost $200, and she was busy taking a candid photo of her plate for her followers.
Exactly, Dante, Kiki snapped, not even looking up from her phone. Simone, you're just projecting because you're a gray rock. You're boring, you're stagnant, you've been in the same house with the same job, counting the same pills for years. Dante is a visionary. He's a fake baller to you because you don't understand how real wealth is built. It's about leverage, honey. Look it up.
Leverage. Y'all, when she said that word, I almost laughed. Leverage is what you have when you own the assets. What Dante had was a rope around his neck that he was calling a gold chain. Dante, I said, my voice as calm as a Sunday morning at Big Mama's house. I'm giving you a chance, one last chance. If you've done something, let's say, irregular with any paperwork involving my name or this house, tell me now. We can handle it as a family. We can call the bank together and stop whatever is in motion. But once that sun comes up tomorrow, the door is closed. Do you understand me? My mother, Brenda, finally looked up from her plate of fried chicken. She looked uncomfortable, but not for the right reasons. She wasn't worried about the fraud, she was worried about the vibe.
Simone, enough, Brenda said, her voice full of that tired, enabling sigh I've heard my whole life. You're ruining a perfectly good Sunday dinner. Dante is a good man. He's taking care of the Buckhead Manor deposit tomorrow. $123,000. Do you know how that makes us look in the community? The church mothers are already talking about how Kiki is marrying into old money. Stop trying to tear him down just because you're lonely.
Old money? I whispered. Mom, Dante's money is so new, the ink hasn't even dried on the forgeries yet. Dante slammed his glass down on the table. The sound echoed through the house that I bought, the house that I maintained, and the house he had tried to steal with a crooked notary and a $5 pen.
You know what your problem is, Simone? Dante leaned over the table, his breath smelling like expensive cognac and cheap lies. You think you're better than us because you have a degree from an HBCU and a stable career, but you're small-minded. You're so scared of losing what you have that you'll never get what you deserve. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, that $500,000 loan clears, and when it does, I'm buying this house from you. I'm going to double whatever you think it's worth just so I never have to see your boring face in my hallway again. The audacity was breathtaking. He was telling me he was going to buy my house with my own money that he'd stolen from my own credit. It was a loop of narcissism so tight it was a wonder he could still breathe.
So that's your final answer? I asked.
That's my final answer, Dante sneered. Now why don't you go upstairs and count your pennies? Kiki and I have a wedding to plan. We have to go over the floral arrangements. $40,000 worth of white orchids, Simone. Can you even imagine that? No, you can't, because you'd probably rather spend it on a savings account.
I stood up slowly. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt light.
It was the feeling of a heavy weight being lifted off my shoulders. For years, I had been the flying monkey for my own family's delusions. I had been the enabler, the safety net, the one who caught them every time they fell.
But as I looked at the three of them, Dante with his smug grin, Kiki with her entitlement, and my mother with her head in the sand, I realized that I wasn't their safety net anymore. I was the floor, and I was about to drop out from under them.
"I'll be in my room," I said quietly. "I have a lot of work to do before the tasting tomorrow."
"Don't forget the surprise," Kiki shouted after me as I walked toward the stairs. "It better be good, Simone. I told the wedding planner you were bringing something big."
I didn't answer. I walked up to my room and locked the door with a satisfying click.
I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I didn't look at bank statements this time. I looked at the live security feed from the Buckhead Manor. I saw the staff preparing the private tasting room. I saw the fine china being polished, plates that cost $200 each. I saw the champagne being put on ice.
Then I opened my email and sent a message to Marcus.
"The rejection is final." He doubled down. "He's planning to initiate the transfer at 9 o'clock sharp. Are the witnesses ready?"
Marcus replied within seconds.
The witnesses are confirmed. They'll be at the venue by 9:30. The technical trap is live. The moment he hits send on that transfer, his digital signature will be hard-coded into a federal wire fraud report. He won't be able to say it was a glitch or a mistake. He's walking right into the noose.
I closed the laptop and leaned back.
I thought about Big Mama's house one more time. I remembered how she used to take us to church every Sunday. She'd sit there in her Sunday best, a hat that cost $150 pinned to her head, and she'd listen to the preacher talk about reaping what you sow. "Simone," she'd tell me later while we were peeling peaches for cobbler, "some people spend their whole lives planting weeds and then act surprised when they don't have a garden. Don't you ever be the one to pull the weeds for 'em. Let 'em choke on 'em. That's the only way they'll learn what a flower actually looks like."
I looked at my watch. It was 10:30 p.m.
In less than 12 hours, the royal wedding of the century was going to turn into the federal case of a lifetime. Dante thought he was the king of Buckhead. He thought he'd outsmarted the boring pharmacist.
But y'all won't believe what happened when I checked the D&K Elite Ventures portal one last time before bed.
Dante hadn't just applied for the loans. He had already started a pre-authorized transfer for the $123,000 deposit to the Buckhead Manor, set for tomorrow morning. He was so confident he'd scheduled the theft.
He thought he'd won, but he forgot one small thing. I'm the one who owns the server that transfer has to pass through.
Now, y'all, I need you to understand that Monday morning in Atlanta has a specific kind of energy. It's the sound of leaf blowers in Buckhead, the smell of expensive espresso, and the sight of people in $5,000 suits rushing to offices to decide who gets to keep their lifestyle and who gets to lose it. But in my house, the energy was electric for all the wrong reasons. I was up at 6 o'clock. I didn't need an alarm. When you know you're about to watch a man walk into a federal trap he set for himself, your body just wakes up ready. I went downstairs to my kitchen, the one with the $40,000 Italian marble countertops and the custom gold fixtures, and I made myself a simple cup of tea. I didn't want the financial porn of my lifestyle to be too loud this morning. I needed to look like the boring pharmacist one last time. By 8:45, the house was a circus. Dante came flying down the stairs wearing a $3,000 Brioni blazer over a t-shirt, looking like he'd spent the whole night snorting ambition and desperation. He had his laptop in one hand and a $200 gold-plated burner phone in the other. He didn't even say good morning. He just walked straight to the kitchen island,
plugged in his charger, and started tapping away like he was the CEO of the world.
"Today's the day, Kiki," Dante shouted toward the stairs. "The Eagle is about to land. 9 o'clock sharp, the DNK Elite account is going to look like a phone number." Kiki floated down a few minutes later, already dressed for the wedding tasting. She was wearing a $2,500 Dolce & Gabbana floral dress that was so tight she could barely breathe, and she was carrying a new bag, a $4,000 Bottega Veneta clutch that I knew for a fact she'd bought on a high-interest store card.
"I told you, Dante," Kiki said, leaning over and kissing his cheek while looking at her own reflection in the toaster. "I knew you'd come through. I already told the florist to add the $10,000 flower wall for the reception. We're going to be the talk of Atlanta."
My mother, Brenda, followed them, looking like she'd finally found her first lady spirit. She was wearing her Sunday best on a Monday, a $2,000 St. John knit suit, and a string of pearls I'd bought her for her 60th birthday. "Simone, baby," my mother said, looking at me with a pitying smile, "are you sure you want to go to this tasting? You look a little tired. Maybe you should just stay home and rest. We wouldn't want you to have one of your episodes in front of the wedding planner." I took a slow sip of my tea. "I wouldn't miss it for the world, Mom. I'm feeling much better. I'm actually excited to see Dante's big move finally pay off." Dante looked up at me, his eyes gleaming with a mix of arrogance and pure, unadulterated greed. "It's paying off, all right. In exactly 5 minutes, the first $500,000 tranche hits the DNK account. Then I'm initiating the transfer for the Buckhead Manor, $123,050 straight to the venue. No more card declined notices for this family." Now, y'all won't believe the level of legal noose I had prepared while they were dreaming about flower walls. I had my tablet open under the counter. I wasn't looking at recipes, I was watching the mirrored server Marcus had set up. See, Dante thought he was logging into a standard private equity portal. What he was actually logged into was a honeypot server hosted by the State Bureau of Investigation. Every keystroke he made, every digital signature he forged, and every IP address he hopped was being recorded in high definition. 8:59 a.m. The house went silent. Even the birds outside seemed to stop chirping. Dante was staring at his screen, his finger hovering over the Initiate Transfer button. "Do it, baby," Kiki whispered. "Secure the future." 9 o'clock hit. Dante clicked the mouse. Click. "Boom!" Dante yelled, throwing his hands in the air. "Status pending. That's it. It's done. The money is moved. We are officially in the big leagues." I watched my tablet. A red notification popped up on the bottom of my screen. Alert. Wire fraud triggered. Location, 124 Peachtree Road. Metadata, verified forged digital signature. Simone Reed. Status, real-time tracking initiated. It showed everyone he wasn't playing around. He really thought he had just stolen $500,000.62 from my life. He turned to me, his face twisted into a mask of pure, ugly triumph. "You hear that, Simone? That's the sound of you losing your leverage. By noon today, I'm going to have the deed to this house in my name, and you can take your boring little pharmacy degree and find a studio apartment in the suburbs. I told you I was a man of action." I didn't argue. I didn't even stand up. I just looked at him with that gray rock blankness that drives narcissists insane. "I'm happy for you, Dante," I said quietly. "I really am. Now, shouldn't we get going? We have a tasting at 10 o'clock, and the Buckhead Manor doesn't like it when people are late for a $123,000 event." "You're damn right they don't," Dante said, grabbing his keys, the keys to the Maybach I paid for.
Let's go. I want to see the look on the manager's face when the wire hits their account.
Now, y'all, the drive to Buckhead was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Dante was driving like a madman, weaving the $200,000 Maybach through traffic like he was in a movie. Kiki was on her phone, already calling her friends to tell them about the VIP upgrades she was adding to the wedding. My mother was in the back seat, humming a hymn from church, probably thanking the Lord for blessing her with a son-in-law who was a professional thief.
We pulled up to the Buckhead Manor at 9:45. This place is the peak of Atlanta luxury. We're talking about a historic mansion with a gated driveway, 200-year-old oak trees, and a staff that treats you like royalty if your check clears.
We were met at the door by the wedding planner, a woman named Genevieve who wears $4,000 Chanel suits and doesn't speak to anyone who makes less than six figures.
Mr. Williams, Miss Reed, Genevieve beamed, her fake smile perfectly in place. We are so excited for your tasting today. The chef has prepared the 5-course signature menu, including the Wagyu beef tartare and the lobster bisque. And I see your wire transfer is currently in process in our system.
That's right, Dante said, puffing at his chest. The full $123,000. It should be fully cleared by the time we finish our dessert.
Wonderful, Genevieve said, leading us into a private dining room that had a $12,000 crystal chandelier and a table set with $300 gold-rimmed plates. Please, make yourselves comfortable. We'll begin the service shortly.
I sat down and looked around the room. I saw the witnesses I had arranged with Marcus. There were 2 men in the corner of the lobby, wearing plain suits and holding two-way radios. They weren't there for the Wagyu. Dante sat at the head of the table, looking like the king of the world. He picked up his phone and took a photo of the table setting.
Life is good, isn't it? He asked, looking at me. Too bad you'll never know what it feels like to be at the top, Simone. You're just the help that got us here. I smiled, a real, genuine smile this time. You're right, Dante. I'm just the help, and I've helped you get exactly where you need to be. Just then, the doors to the private dining room opened, but it wasn't the waiter with the lobster bisque. It was Detective Vance, followed by 3 uniformed officers and Marcus, who was holding a $3,000 MacBook Pro like it was a holy relic. This silence that hit that room was louder than a gunshot. Dante's smile didn't just fade, it disintegrated. He looked at the officers, then at Marcus, and finally he looked at me. He tried to stand up, his $500 Balenciaga sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. "What is this?" Dante stammered. "Genevieve, what's going on? Who are these people?" Detective Vance walked straight to the table and pulled a $2 piece of paper from his pocket. It was a warrant. "Dante Williams?" Vance asked, his voice cold and professional. "You're under arrest for multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and the forgery of a quitclaim deed for the property at 124 Peachtree Road. We also have a warrant to search your vehicle and your person for restricted pharmaceutical substances obtained under a fraudulent license." Kiki let out a scream that probably shattered a window. "No, you're making a mistake. My fiancé is an investor. He just paid the deposit. $123,000. Marcus stepped forward and opened his laptop, turning the screen so everyone, including the wedding planner, could see it. "The transfer was flagged, Kiki," Marcus said. "The D&K Elite Ventures account has been frozen by the State Bureau of Investigation. The $123,000 isn't going to the venue. It's being held as evidence of a federal crime." I looked at Dante. He was shaking. The fake baller was gone, and in his place was a small, scared man who had run out of lies. "Simone," Dante whispered, looking at me with a desperate, pleading look.
Simone, tell them. Tell them it's a family matter. Tell them we can fix it. I took a slow sip of my water. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anger. I just felt done.
Dante, I said, my voice carrying across the silent, expensive room, I gave you one last chance at Sunday dinner. I asked you to confess. You chose to insult me. You chose to try and steal my home. And now you're going to choose which lawyer you can afford with $0 and 0 cents.
Detective Vance stepped behind Dante and pulled out a pair of handcuffs. The sound of the metal clicking shut was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. He thought he'd won because he had the pending status on his screen. But he forgot one small thing. I'm the one who wrote the code that made his world stop. Now, y'all, I need you to understand the level of audacity it takes for a man to be hauled out of a private tasting room in handcuffs at 10 o'clock in the morning, only to show up at a 5-star gala 6 hours later like he'd just been at a spa. After Detective Vance took Dante out of the Buckhead Manor in Chapter 9, I thought the day was done. I thought the nightmare was over. But y'all won't believe the text I got from Marcus while I was sitting in my car, finally breathing for the first time in a week.
Simone, Marcus had said over the phone, his voice tight, Dante's lawyer is a shark. He got a judge to sign off on a signature bond. Since Dante has no official record and the wire fraud is technically still in the investigatory phase, he walked out of the precinct 2 hours ago. And, Simone, he's telling everyone the arrest was a misunderstanding caused by a glitch in your pharmacy's payroll system. I didn't scream. I didn't even get mad. I just looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, the reflection of the boring pharmacist, and I realized that a silent arrest wasn't enough. For a narcissist like Dante, if there isn't an audience, it didn't happen. He was planning to go to the Buckhead engagement gala that night and act like he was still the king of Atlanta. So I decided it was time to give him the throne he deserved. I went straight to a boutique in Phipps Plaza. I didn't look at the sales rack. I walked right into the private suite. I bought a custom Tom Ford power suit in a shade of midnight black that looked like it was woven from pure shadow. Total cost, $5,800 and 0 cents. Then I went to my jeweler, I took my Sunday dinner pearls off and put on a 3-carat diamond tennis necklace and matching studs. Total value, $55,000. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around, I wasn't the gray rock anymore. I was the mountain. Now, y'all, the Buckhead Gala was being held at a historic estate that looked like something out of a movie. We're talking about a driveway lined with 200-year-old oaks and enough security to guard a small country. The entrance fee for the charity event was $1,000 per person, and the guest list was a who's who of Black excellence in the South. Judges, doctors, HBCU presidents, everyone was there. As I pulled up in my blacked-out Escalade, I saw the Maybach parked right at the front. Dante had the audacity to use the valet. I stepped out of the car and I could feel the eyes on me. I didn't have my glasses on. My hair was swept back into a sleek, professional bun but showed everyone I wasn't playing around. I walked into that ballroom and the first thing I heard was Kiki's laugh. It was that loud, grating influencer laugh that always made me want to hide in the pantry at Big Mama's house. She was standing in the center of the room, surrounded by a group of church mothers and young socialites. She was wearing a dress that cost $4,500, and she was waving her hand around so everyone could see the engagement ring that Dante had probably bought with a stolen credit card. "Oh, Simone, you're finally here," Kiki shouted across the room, her voice dripping with fake honey. We were just telling everyone how you've been so stressed lately. Dante said the police were so sorry about that little banking error this morning, they even offered him an apology.
I walked toward them, my heels clicking on the marble floor, a sound that cost $750 a pair. Is that right, Kiki? I asked, my voice calm, level, and ice cold. Dante was standing next to her, holding a glass of $300 crystal champagne like it was water. He looked at me, and for a split second, I saw the fear in his eyes. But then the narcissist took over. He puffed out his chest and adjusted his Tom Ford blazer, the one he'd probably bought with the funds he thought he'd stolen. "Simone, let's not have a scene," Dante whispered, leaning in. "I'm a big man. I can forgive a misunderstanding. Why don't you go get a drink and enjoy the financial porn of the evening? This party cost $75,000 to put together. Try to act like you belong here." "I belong here, Dante," I said, looking him dead in his fake baller eyes. "The question is, do you?" My mother, Brenda, fluttered over, looking like she was about to have a heart attack in her $3,000 evening gown. "Simone, baby, please, don't start with the therapy vocabulary tonight. It's a celebration. Dante is about to make a big announcement about the D&K Elite expansion." "Oh, I'm sure he is," I said.
I looked around the room. I saw the flying monkeys. I saw the enablers. I saw the people who had spent years calling me the boring sister while they lived off my labor. They were all sipping expensive wine and talking about legacy while standing on a foundation of lies.
It reminded me of the time Big Mama caught a fox in her chicken coop. That fox didn't try to run, it just sat there and tried to look like one of a hens. But Big Mama knew. She said, "Simone, you can put a ribbon on a wolf, but it's still gonna howl when the moon comes up." I walked away from them and headed toward the back of the ballroom, near the AV booth. I saw Marcus standing there, looking like a high-end security guard in his $3,000 tuxedo. He gave me a tiny nod.
"Is the USB ready?" I whispered.
"It's ready, Simone," Marcus said. The projector reveal is queued up. The moment the gala chair starts the community leaders presentation, we override the feed. We've got the dash cam footage from the pawn shop, the recorded calls from the Motel 6, and the digital forensic map of the wire fraud. "And the toxicology report?" "Front and center," Marcus smirked. "Everyone in this room is about to find out that Dante's miracle weight loss supplements are actually just industrial-grade filler and laxatives."
Now, y'all won't believe the feeling of power that comes with silence. I walked back into the crowd and accepted a glass of sparkling water. I didn't need the alcohol. I was already drunk on the truth. I watched as the gala chair, a prominent judge from the city, took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the judge said, his voice booming through the $10,000 sound system. "Tonight is about excellence. It's about the people who build our community. And before we begin our auction, I want to invite a young man to the stage who has made a very generous pledge to our foundation. Mr. Dante Williams, please come forward." Dante strutted up there like he was the second coming of wealth itself. He took the microphone, flashed those $8,000 veneers, and looked out at the crowd. "Thank you, Judge," Dante said, his voice full of that oily charm. "You know, people always ask me what the secret to success is. I tell them it's about vision. It's about taking care of your family. Tonight, in honor of my beautiful fiancée, Kiki, and her sister, the boring but hard-working Simone, I'm pledging $50,000 to this foundation." The room erupted in applause. Kiki was beaming. My mother was wiping away fake tears.
I just stood there, my hand resting on my diamond necklace, and I looked at Marcus.
Now, I whispered. The lights in the ballroom didn't just dim, they went pitch black. A hum filled the room, and the giant 50-foot projection screen behind Dante flickered to life.
It didn't show the D&K Elite Ventures logo.
It showed a high-definition video of Dante in the back of a police car from 4 hours ago, crying and begging Detective Vance to let him call his rich sister to pay his bail.
The silence that hit that ballroom was so heavy you could have felt it in your bones.
Dante turned around, his face going from mahogany to ash in a matter of seconds. He dropped the microphone, and the sound of it hitting the stage, a $200 piece of equipment, sounded like a thunderclap.
"What is this?" Dante screamed, looking at the AV booth. "Turn it off! This is a hack! Someone is trying to sabotage me!"
But the screen didn't stop. It switched to a split screen. On one side, it showed the forged signature on the quitclaim deed for my house. On the other, it showed a side-by-side comparison of my real signature from my HBCU diploma. Then a voice filled the room. It was the audio from the dash cam.
"I'm telling you, Kiki, she's clueless. By Monday morning, that $500,000 will be in the account and we'll buy the house from her and kick her out."
I walked forward, right into the center of the light, the gray rock finally becoming the sun. He thought he'd won because he'd made bail and put on a fancy suit. But he forgot one small thing. I'm the one who paid for the projector, and I'm the one who holds the remote. Now, y'all, if I told you the silence in that ballroom was heavy, I'd be lying. It wasn't just heavy, it was expensive. It was the kind of silence that happens when 500 people in $5,000 outfits realize they'd been cheering for a ghost. Dante stood on that stage, the spotlight still hitting his $3,000 Brioni blazer, but his face looked like it had been dragged through the Georgia red clay. The screen behind him wasn't showing the D&K Elite logo anymore. It was showing a crystal-clear, high-definition recording from the interior of the Maybach. "Wait, this isn't the right video!" Kiki screamed from the front row. She tried to jump toward the stage, her $4,500 dress nearly tripping her up. "Genevieve, turn it off! Simone is hacking the system. She's trying to embarrass us." But the tribute video from hell was just getting started. First, the audio kicked in, loud, crisp, and unmistakable. It was the recording from the Motel 6 parking lot. The speakers, which cost the gala committee $10,000 to rent for the night, carried Dante's voice to every corner of the room. "I'm telling you, Kiki, just give me the bag," the recording boomed. "If I pawn your Chanel bag and that Patek Philippe watch Simone bought me, I can get at least $15,000. That'll cover the florist and the venue deposit until the loan clears on Monday." I watched the church mothers in the second row. You know the ones, the ladies who lead the usher board and don't miss a Sunday service. They clutched their pearls and leaned away from my mother as if she'd caught something contagious. My mother, Brenda, looked like she wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. Her $2,000 St. John's suit couldn't hide the way her shoulders were shaking. Then the video cut to a side-by-side comparison. On the left was the quitclaim deed Dante had filed for my house. On the right, a zoomed-in shot of my real signature from my HBCU diploma. A red circle appeared around the forgery, showing exactly where the S didn't loop and the T wasn't crossed. "The math wasn't mathing," a text overlay on the screen read. "This is a deep fake!" Dante yelled into the dead microphone. He started pacing the stage, his $500 Balenciaga sneakers squeaking like a trapped rat. "Simone made this. She's a pharmacist. She's been stealing drugs from the clinic and she's hallucinating. Don't believe her." I didn't say a word.
I just stood in the middle of the aisle, my 3-carat diamond necklace catching the light, and I looked at him. I was the gray rock he'd tried to throw away, and now I was the wall he was crashing into. The video shifted again. This time, it showed the internal bank portal for D&K Elite Ventures. The audience watched in real time as a red fraud alert banner flashed across the screen. Below it, the list of pending loans appeared, $1,200,000 and 0 cents. Then came the toxicology report. Marcus had edited the video perfectly. It showed a photo of the weight loss injections Dante was planning to sell, followed by a zoomed-in list of the ingredients found in the lab. Filler, industrial-grade talc. Active ingredient, none. The room erupted. It wasn't applause this time. It was a roar of pure high society outrage. People who had been thinking about investing with Dante started checking their pockets and their bank apps. The judge who had introduced him stepped off the stage as if Dante were on fire. "Simone, stop this!" Kiki shrieked, running up to me. She looked like a narcissist who had finally run out of gaslighting. "You're ruining my life. This was supposed to be my night. You're just a bitter, lonely girl who can't stand to see someone else win." "Kiki," I said, my voice barely above a whisper but loud enough for the people around us to hear. "I didn't write his signature on those deeds. I didn't put talcum powder in those syringes. And I certainly didn't tell him to pawn the gifts I bought you with my boring money. He showed everyone he wasn't playing around. He just forgot that I don't play at all." Dante saw the exit doors at the back of the hall. He tried to make a break for it, hopping off the stage and pushing past a waiter carrying a tray of $200 a bottle champagne. But y'all won't believe who was waiting at the door. Detective Vance was there, but he wasn't alone this time. He had 4 other men with him, and they weren't wearing local PD uniforms. They were wearing windbreakers with 3 letters on the back, FBI. Dante froze. He looked at the FBI agents, then back at the giant screen, which was now playing a loop of him crying in the back of the police car from earlier that afternoon. "Dante Williams." Detective Vance's voice cut through the chaos. "The signature bond has been revoked based on the new evidence of interstate wire fraud and the manufacturing of counterfeit medical supplies. You're coming with us, for real this time." They didn't just handcuff him. They did it right in the middle of the Buckhead Gala, in front of the cameras, the influencers, and the very people he had tried to scam. The sound of the metal zip ties being pulled tight was the only symphony. No, I'm not using that word. It was the only music I needed to hear. Kiki collapsed into a chair, her head in her hands. My mother was trying to apologize to the judge, but he wouldn't even look at her. The fake baller was being dragged out, and the flying monkeys were finally falling out of the sky. I turned to Marcus, who was closing his laptop at the AV booth. He gave me a wink and a thumbs up. The mission was accomplished. The house was safe. The license was protected. I started to walk toward the exit, my head held high. But as I passed the table where my mother was sitting, she grabbed my arm. Her eyes were wide, and for the first time, she looked at me, really looked at me without the pity or the boring labels. "Simone," she whispered, "what are we going to do now? The house, the money, everything is gone, isn't it?" I gently pulled my arm away. "The house isn't gone, Mom. My house is just fine. But yours? Well, you might want to start looking for a place that fits a Motel 6 budget." I walked out of those gold-trimmed doors and into the cool Atlanta night. My black Escalade was waiting at the curb. I felt lighter than I'd felt since I was at my HBCU graduation. But as the driver pulled away, I looked at my phone and saw a notification I wasn't expecting.
It wasn't a text from Kiki or a call from a lawyer. It was an alert from my home security system back at the house on Peachtree Road. Someone was inside, and they weren't just looking for a place to sleep.
He thought he'd lost everything at the gala, but he forgot one small thing. I wasn't the only one who knew where the real safe was hidden. Now, y'all, the sound of metal hitting metal in a room full of silk and diamonds is something you never forget. It's a cold, sharp sound that cuts right through the smell of $500 candles and stale perfume. While the FBI agents were clicking those handcuffs onto Dante's wrists, the fake baller finally ran out of breath. He wasn't talking about leverage anymore. He wasn't bragging about power moves. He was sobbing so hard he was choking on the air of a room he couldn't afford to be in. The ballroom was a sea of whispers. The church mothers were leaning in, their $2,000 hats bobbing as they caught every bit of the tea. I stood there, my hands clasped in front of my custom Tom Ford suit, watching the man who tried to steal my life be reduced to a heap of expensive fabric and broken promises. "Simone, tell them!" Dante shrieked as they started to lead him toward the gold-trimmed exit. "Tell them it was a loan for the family. I did it for us. Tell them you gave me permission." I didn't blink. I didn't even breathe heavy. I just looked at him with that gray rock stillness that makes a narcissist feel like they're disappearing. "The math wasn't mathing, Dante," I said, my voice carrying just enough for the front row to hear. And neither was the signature. Now, y'all won't believe the audacity of Kiki in this moment. She didn't go to her fiancé. She didn't try to comfort him. She turned on me like a snake that had been stepped on. She looked at the crowd, the judges, the socialites, the people she'd been trying to impress all night, and she pointed a shaking finger at me. "She set him up!" Kiki screamed, her $4,500 Dolce & Gabbana dress straining at the seams as she lunged toward me. "Simone is a narcissist. She's been gaslighting us for years, making us think she was just a boring pharmacist while she was hoarding all the money Big Mama left us. She's the one who should be in handcuffs." The room went dead silent. Even the FBI agents paused for a second. "Kiki," I said, my voice cool and steady. "Big Mama didn't leave us a dime. She left me a legacy of hard work and a $500 savings bond that I used to pay for my first semester of books. Everything else, the house you live in, the car you're driving, even that bag you're clutching, I paid for it. Every cent of the $75,000 this gala cost was pledged by a man who didn't have 75 cents in his own name." My mother, Brenda, finally spoke up, her voice trembling. "Simone, how could you do this at a public event? Think of the reputation of this family. People at Sunday dinner are never going to look at us the same." "Mom," I said, turning to her, "you were so worried about the reputation that you let a man forge a deed to my house. You were so worried about looking rich that you let him use my license to manufacture fake medicine. The only reputation I'm worried about is the one that says I'm a fool, and as of tonight, that's a lie." Detective Vance gave me a small nod as he pushed Dante through the doors. The gala of the century was officially over. The lights came up, and the financial porn of the evening started to look a lot like a crime scene. The $12,000 chandelier was reflecting off the tears on Kiki's face, but I didn't feel a thing. I walked out of the ballroom, Marcus trailing behind me. We reached the valet, and my black Escalade pulled up. I handed the valet a $50 bill and stepped into the cool leather interior. "It's over, Simone," Marcus said, leaning against the door. "The FBI has the servers. They've got the notary who signed the forged deed. Dante is looking at 20 to 25 years for the wire fraud and the medical charges.
Kiki and your mother are going to be subpoenaed as witnesses, maybe even accomplices if they can prove they knew about the pawn shop transactions.
I know, I said.
I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. I thought about the gas station. I thought about the smell of the diesel and the bag of chips. I thought about how they laughed as they drove away.
But then my phone buzzed in my hand. It was a priority alert from my home security system back at the house on Peachtree Road. I swiped the notification, thinking it was just the wind or a stray cat.
The live feed popped up on my screen.
The house was dark, but the infrared cameras were crystal clear. I saw a figure in my home office, the room where I keep the safe. It wasn't Dante, he was in the back of a van. It wasn't Kiki, she was still at the gala.
The person on the screen was wearing a familiar leather jacket. They were holding a $200 crowbar and were currently prying the floorboards up from under my desk, the exact spot where my father told me he'd hidden the original family trust documents before he died.
I watched as they pulled a metal box out of the ground. They turned toward the camera, and for a split second, the light from a passing car hit their face.
My heart didn't just skip a beat, it stopped. I thought I'd unmasked the villain of the story at the gala, but as I watched the screen, I realized that Dante was just the distraction. The person holding the box looked into the camera and smiled, a slow, chilling smile that I'd seen every single Sunday of my life. They thought they'd lost everything when the FBI showed up, but they forgot one small thing. I wasn't the only one in the family who knew how to play the gray rock.
Now, y'all, I didn't even tell the driver to hurry. I just sat in the back of that Escalade watching the live feed on my phone like it was a movie I'd already seen the ending to. The person in my office, the one prying up my floorboards with a $200 crowbar, was none other than Aunt Linda.
The first lady of the church, the woman who spent every Sunday dinner telling me I needed to be more like my sister, was currently sweating through her $3,000 Sunday suit, trying to steal a box of papers. I walked through the front door of my house on Peachtree Road at 11 o'clock. I didn't sneak, I didn't shout, I just walked straight to the office and leaned against the doorframe. "Looking for these, Auntie?" I asked, holding up a sleek, encrypted hard drive.
Aunt Linda nearly jumped out of her skin, dropping the crowbar onto my $3,000 hardwood floors with a loud thud. She was holding a dusty metal box, her face contorted in a mask of greed that no amount of church mother makeup could hide.
"Simone, you're supposed to be at the gala," she stammered, clutching the box to her chest. I thought I heard a noise. I was protecting your interests, baby." "You were protecting a box of old HBCU yearbooks and some recipes for Big Mama's peach cobbler, Linda," I said, my voice as cold as the ice in a $500 bottle of Cristal. "The actual trust documents, the ones that prove I own every brick of this house and every cent of the family estate, have been in a private vault at Chase Bank for 3 years." I watched the color drain from her face. It showed everyone she wasn't playing around. She was just a common thief in a fancy hat. "Dante told me you were hiding the real Will," she hissed, the mask finally falling off. "He said you were keeping all the money for yourself. We're family, Simone. We deserved a piece of that $4,500,000 net worth. Why should the boring sister get everything?" "Because the boring sister earned it," I said, "and because the boring sister is the only one who knows that the police are currently pulling into the driveway." Now, y'all won't believe the total liquidation that followed. By Tuesday morning, the Bank of Simone was officially out of business for good. I didn't just fire the flying monkeys, I evicted them. I served my mother and Kiki with notice to vacate papers for the Peachtree house. I gave them 48 hours to pack their bags. I watched as Kiki's $7,000 custom wedding gown was hauled away by a resale boutique for a fraction of what it cost, and I didn't feel a single bit of regret. Then came the fire sale of the fake baller lifestyle. I sold the obsidian black Mercedes-Benz Maybach GLS 600, that $200,000 piece of machinery, to a luxury dealer in North Carolina. I sold Dante's $3,000 suits for pennies on the dollar at a high-end consignment shop and donated the proceeds to a local HBCU scholarship fund. I even liquidated the D&K Elite office equipment, which consisted of nothing but three $5,000 iMacs that had never been used for a single day of actual work. By Wednesday, the legal hammer officially dropped. Dante Williams sat in a courtroom wearing a generic orange jumpsuit that cost about $5. It was a far cry from the Tom Ford suits he loved so much. The judge, a woman who didn't play about financial crimes, looked at the $1,200,000 fraud total and didn't blink. "Dante Williams," she said, her voice echoing through the silent room, "for the crimes of wire fraud, identity theft, and the manufacturing of counterfeit medical supplies, I sentence you to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 10 years of supervised release. You are also ordered to pay $1,500,000 in restitution." Kiki didn't get off easy either. For her role in the pawnshop transactions and for being a willing accomplice in the identity theft, she was sentenced to 3 years in a minimum security facility and 5,000 hours of community service. My mother, Brenda, wasn't charged, but she was broke. She moved into a one-bedroom apartment that cost $900 a month, a far cry from the Buckhead mansion she'd been living in. I set up a small, restrictive trust for her that pays her utilities and groceries directly. No cash, no luxury, just the basics. I stood on the sidewalk outside the courthouse, wearing a new Chanel tweed jacket that cost $8,900 and a pair of sunglasses that cost more than Dante's monthly bail had been. I felt the weight of the last 10 years finally lift off my shoulders. I looked at Marcus, who was standing by my new car, a $150,000 Porsche Taycan that was fully electric and silent. "What now, Simone?" he asked. "Now," I said, sliding into the driver's seat, "I'm going to go get some Sunday dinner. But this time, I'm eating alone, and for the first time in my life, I'm not paying for anyone else's lies." He thought he'd won because he had a crowbar and a plan, but he forgot one small thing. I'm the one who built the house, and I'm the one who knows exactly where the trap door is. Now, y'all, they say it's lonely at the top, but let me tell you a secret. It's actually just real quiet, and that's exactly how I like it. 3 months have passed since the red wedding at the Buckhead Gala, and the silence is the most expensive thing I own. I'm currently standing on the balcony of my new penthouse, overlooking the Atlanta skyline. This place cost me $12,500,000 and 0 cents. It's a glass fortress in the sky with white oak floors that cost $200 per square foot and a kitchen island carved from a single block of Calacatta marble that cost $85,000. I'm leaning against the railing, wearing a silk lounge set from Loro Piana that retails for $3,200, sipping a glass of freshly pressed green juice out of a Baccarat crystal tumbler that cost me $350. I don't miss the Sunday dinners. I don't miss the math wasn't mathing arguments. And I certainly don't miss being the boring sister. Now, y'all won't believe the letters I've been getting lately. My mother, Brenda, sends one every week from her $900 apartment. She's real humble now that she's back to using coupons and taking the bus. She writes about how we need to move past this and how Big Mama would want the family together for the holidays.
I don't open them. I just put them in a $2,000 Hermes Birkin bag, one of the few things I kept from the liquidation, and I wait until the bag is full to drop the whole thing into the shredder.
Dante sent a message through his lawyer, too. He's currently serving his 12-year sentence at a federal facility in South Carolina. He's wearing a $5 orange jumpsuit and eating mystery meat while I'm out here breathing air that's filtered through a $10,000 HVAC system. He wanted to know if I'd invest in his appeal. I told my lawyer to tell his lawyer that my only investment right now is in a new pharmaceutical patent that's projected to bring in $6 million in the first quarter of next year. And Kiki? Well, Kiki is learning what a gray rock life actually looks like. She's in a communal bunk wearing state-issued scrubs that definitely aren't Gucci. She has 3 more years to think about why she let a fake baller forge a deed to her sister's house. I heard from a flying monkey that she's trying to start a prison vlog on paper, but nobody's reading it. I walked back inside to my walk-in closet. It's a $200,000 custom build with motion sensor lighting and a climate-controlled vault for my handbags and watches. I looked at the shelf where my old HBCU graduation cap sits. It's the only thing in this room that didn't cost a fortune, but it's the thing that made the fortune possible. I'm the underestimated Black woman they thought they could leave at a gas station. They thought they could leave me in the dust of a Chevron and drive off into a sunset I paid for. But that's the thing about people who only look at the labels on your clothes. They never look at the fire in your eyes. They see the boring pharmacist, but they don't see the CEO. They see the quiet sister, but they don't see the woman holding the ledger. I've gone completely no contact. I changed my number, my address, and my entire circle. The only people who have my new information are my lawyers, my board of directors, and Marcus. Marcus actually stopped by earlier to drop off the final closing papers for the Buckhead Manor. I bought the venue. I didn't want it to be the place where my family's reputation died. I wanted it to be the place where my new business empire began. I'm turning that $30,000 ballroom into a headquarters for a nonprofit that helps young women from HBCUs start their own tech and medical firms. It's the surprise Kiki was so excited about. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I saw a notification from a private investigator I hired. He's been tracking the diamond and gold exchange owner who helped Dante pawn my gifts. It turns out that shop is going under too, because I pulled the pharmacy's corporate account from the bank that holds his mortgage. The math always maths in the end, y'all. I closed the laptop and looked at the sunset. It was a deep, rich orange, the color of a new beginning. I'm 32 years old, I'm worth over $5 million, and for the first time in my life, I don't owe anyone an explanation for my peace. They thought they'd won when they left me behind, but they forgot one small thing. I wasn't just standing on the curb. I was taking a step up. I'm finally at the top. And y'all won't believe who I just saw walking into my lobby downstairs, thinking they could talk their way past my 24-hour security team.